Hi, this is Cam with Murf Electric Bikes, and today I'm going to walk you through the assembly instructions for your Fat Murf or Fat Murf Step-Thru. The tools you'll need for this are a 4, 5, and 6 millimeter Allen wrench, a 10 millimeter wrench, a 15 millimeter wrench, a Phillips head screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, a pair of side cutters or snips, and a bike pump. Also, it's nice to have a torque wrench or some SAC2 compound from Park Tool. So our first step here is going to be to unpack the bike from its box. I'm going to start by using my side cutters and cutting all these straps off. There's going to be quite a bit of packaging, so I'm just going to go ahead and move all this to the side for now. And carefully open up this box, making sure I know where the staples are. Once the box is open, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting through some of these zip ties. And note that if this bike was shipped to you, there's probably going to be a little bit more packaging in here. You can just take it out and put it to the side for now. I like to start by cutting off all the zip ties that hold the front wheel. Should be 3 total. And then just lift the front wheel straight out. Put this to the side for now. And continue cutting through the rest of the packaging. There is a zip tie that is holding both of your keys on it. Just take care to cut that, and I like to put the keys into the battery itself, just so we don't lose them. Now that we have a lot of the packaging out, we are ready to take the bike out of the box. The bike is pretty heavy, so to make it easy on yourself, we recommend removing the battery first. Just push in and turn the key to the left, grab the handle, and the battery should slide right out. To avoid scratching the front fork, before we take the bike out of the box, we're going to use a piece of scrap foam or packaging that we have and just put that down so the forks can rest on top of it. I'm going to carefully pull this bike out of the box and set it down. Now we're ready to move the box to the side, but before we do that, I just want to check and make sure that everything is out of here. I actually forgot to take out the accessory box that contains our charger, our pedals, and some other useful information. So make sure that is out. One last check and we are good to move this box. Now I'm going to remove the rest of the packaging on here. So some of these you can just do with your hand. And while we're doing this, again, just be cautious that the bike might be a little bit unstable because it's not in a bike rack right now. So just try to have an extra hand on it if you can. And then just remove the rest of these zip ties. When you're cutting these, be careful, as they might just be directly onto the frame. Try to find a spot where the zip tie has some packaging underneath it so that you don't scratch the frame when you cut. And I'm actually going to leave the handlebar things on for now until we're ready to put those in. One last piece over here. And now we're ready to put the front wheel on. To put the front wheel on, the first thing I'm going to do is undo both of these screws, these bolts, just a couple turns each so that there's a little bit of space on the axle. And I'm going to push all the washers out to the side. Now we can undo the bolt that's holding the front fork together so that it doesn't get damaged during shipping. And to do this, we're going to use our 15mm wrench. I'm just going to hold the fork up and undo one side and the other. It should just come right off. You can even hit it with the wrench if needed. Gently balance that back on the packaging, and we can put the front wheel on now. So I'm ready to put the front wheel on. I actually forgot to take out the brake spacer that is in between the brake pads. Need to take this out first before this rotor right here can sit in between the pads. So now that it's out, I'm going to lift this fork up carefully and try to balance it. Actually going to go ahead and move this to the side. Really carefully try to drop the rotor in between the brake pads right here while lining up the fork with the axle right here. You want all of these washers to be on the outside. So this side looks good. This side looks good. It's sitting on that axle. And now I'm going to use this inside tabbed washer and line it up with this hole and just go finger tight on both sides for now. We tighten these to 35 foot-pounds of torque, so grab your torque wrench here. We highly recommend using that. I've done this so many times that I know what 35 foot-pounds of torque feels like, so I'm just going to use this 15mm wrench, which you can do as well. But again, we highly recommend the torque wrench. So I'm going to put that on. This one ratchets, makes it easy. Somewhere about right there. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, both of those are good. Now to put on the handlebars, I'm just going to grab them. Really important, you want them to come out of the rider's left side. So all these wires coming out of the frame should be on the rider left side. And let's just start undoing the packaging here. Get rid of this bottom piece. And we need to orient ourselves for this so I can see that it's flipped. And this stem just goes right into this head tube. Now that it's resting in there, I'm just going to remove the rest of these on the handlebars. This is how the cables in front should look on a properly adjusted handlebar. Again, the cables are coming out of the left side from the rider's perspective and going up in front of here. If they don't look like this, you might need to take this out of here and just kind of twist it around and get it so it looks like this. Now that the stem is in the headset, we can adjust it to our liking. Note there is a maximum height on this that is imprinted on the stem itself. It's about right here. I like to adjust mine as a rule of thumb about 3 fingers high, so somewhere about right there. And I'll use my 6mm Allen key, undo this cap, and then straighten this. Go straight in, tighten this down as hard as you can. We'll replace the stem cap. And then I like to go on this side of the bike, kind of hover over it, and just make sure that it's centered. I can see that mine's actually a little bit off center, so I'm going to undo it just a little bit and move it so that it is centered. Now that the stem's in and tightened, we are ready to adjust the handlebars. So I'm going to need my 5mm Allen key for this. There are 2 bolts, one here and one on the bottom right here, that we're going to loosen. Then I need to center these striations on here into the middle of the stem. And then I'll just pull this guy up wherever I like it. Most people tend to prefer slightly above parallel, but again, you can adjust this to your liking. And once you find it in the spot that you want, just go ahead and tighten both bolts gently. I try to do even pressure on both of them. So you'll notice I'm doing kind of a half turn on the bottom, then a half turn on the top. I'm really looking for this gap right here and right here to be the same on the top and bottom. Now I'll use the other end of this 5mm wrench so I can get a little bit more torque in there. Again, just going back and forth so I'm not over tightening one over the other. It is possible to strip these if you go too hard. So I'm just going until I'm like an open palm's not really giving me any more like turns out of it. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and test it now by putting some downward pressure on the bars, making sure that they don't drop. That's what it sounds like when it drops, so I didn't go hard enough. We're going to try one more time. I'm going to loosen these. Put them back into place, and we're going to try to tighten again. If you're having a lot of trouble with this, this is where that Park Tools SAC 2 compound comes in handy. You can just put a little dab on the handlebar itself on those striations. That'll help it grip the stem better so that slip doesn't happen. If you don't have it, that's fine. It's just nice to have. Okay, one more test. Pretty good. Next, we're going to put the pedals on the bike. The pedals can be found in this accessory box that was in your bike box. So I'm just going to undo the tape here. Take the pedals out, and then we'll put the box to the side again. pedals are side specific, and to figure out which side goes where, you can just check the inside thread right here. This one says R, so it is the right side. This one right here has an L on it, meaning it's for the left side. So I'll put the left one down here. And the right one, we're going to need our 15 millimeter wrench to tighten these completely, but I'm just going to start by going finger tight. So I'm going to put the pedal in. I actually like to just pedal the bike backwards to get the thread started. You can feel it kind of bite already. Just continue pedaling. Once it's all the way in, this is where I'll use that 15 millimeter wrench. Put it right here and do one kind of final turn there. It's about a quarter turn that you'll need. And I'll just do the same thing on the opposite side. This left pedal here is reverse threaded. The process is the same though. I'm just going to put it in just as straight as I can and then start pedaling backwards until I feel it bite and the threads catch. And just keep pedaling backwards. Now that we're at the end, I'm just gonna, again, grab that 15 millimeter wrench and give it about a quarter-ish turn until it's fully tight. Now we're gonna put the headlight on. It should be in this box that was inside the bike box. Just open it up. And we'll carefully take it out. Make sure that the hardware baggie's out too. Put this to the side. And we will be ready to put it on this mount right here. To install the headlight onto this bracket right here, we're going to take out all the screws. We can leave this long screw to the side since it's just a replacement for this guy right here that goes all the way through, as well as the nut for it. So each of these short little screws are going to get a washer on top of them. I'll just kind of line these all up so they're ready to use. Might be some extra washers in there. These are just replacements that we can put to the side as well. So we can put this headlight on here, and you'll notice it can slide up and down this bracket, and you can position it where you'd like. Ideally, you want to have this kind of pointing a little bit downwards so that it's illuminating the path in front of you and not blinding the other drivers. And once you find it in its spot, I think about a third of the way up is good. You can just put these screws on the side part. Should thread right in. I'm just gonna get them all finger tight so it holds in place. Now using our 5 millimeter Allen wrench, I'm going to tighten all of these bolts down. I like to do one side at a time. Give it a little shake, make sure it's not loose, and we can peel that sticker off. The last step here is just going to be to plug this into the actual headlight itself. It only goes in one way, and there are 2 arrows that let you know that's how they need to be aligned. Just goes right in. I like to kind of tuck mine behind the light itself. It sits nicely in that bracket. The next step is to adjust the brakes, and to test to see if you need to adjust them, I just like to lift the front fork up, kind of lean it on the kickstand, and spin this front wheel. I can see that there's light on both sides of the brake pads, and I can't hear any rub from this rotor, so I'm going to move on to the back side. Doing the same thing, kind of tilt it on the kickstand. I'll give it a quick There's a tiny amount of rub I can see, so I'm going to do my best to adjust this now. So to adjust the brakes on here, I'm going to use my 5mm Allen key. Before I get started on this though, I just want to note that it's really important we don't touch this metal rotor right here. If you do that, you can deposit oil on it, and it might make your brakes make some noises as you ride it. So keep that in mind as you do this. I'm going to use this 5mm wrench to loosen both of these top and bottom bolts. Just a couple turns. And what I'm looking for is this view right here. I can see both of the brake pads as well as sitting in between the rotor. And I just want to see some light on both sides. Having a light background helps with this. Once I feel like I've got it in the right spot, I'm going to try to hold it in place and tighten down both of these. The caliper might move while you do it, just do your best to hold it in the correct spot. Bottom's tight, and the top is tight as well. Now we'll give it one more test. I'm going to spin the wheel. So it looks like there's space between the rotor, but as I spun that, I could hear that the pads are still rubbing, so I just need to go back and adjust that again. Just tiny little micro adjustments. This is actually very important because if your brakes are rubbing while you're riding, obviously it's going to wear your pads down faster, but you're also not going to get your maximum top speed, and it'll affect your range, all these other bad things you don't want to happen. Perfect. So that time I didn't hear anything coming from the rotor, and it looked like it was spinning pretty freely, so we are good to go on the brakes. For this next step, I'm going to adjust the derailleur so that the bike smoothly shifts from the high gear to the low gear. And to do that, I'm going to come on this side, tilt the bike over on its kickstand, and I'm going to do my best to pedal and shift at the same time. So, pedaling right now, I'm going to put it into the highest gear by pressing the plus button. So it should be in 7 right now, and just start pedaling. Now I'm going to go down, just 1 gear at a time. And we'll go back up. This one's shifting smoothly, so we can call that good. We do our best to make sure that the derailleurs are well adjusted from the factory, but if your bike is not shifting properly, check out the video on our YouTube channel titled Adjusting Your Derailleur. The last step here is to pump your tires up. So what I'll do here is have my bike pump. I'm gonna move this stem right here down so it's at the bottom. And I'll undo the cap. And we're gonna throw this on. I'm going to pump this up to somewhere between 20 and 30. I'm just going to go 25 for this. If you pump your tires up to that higher number, at 30 psi, they'll roll a little bit better and you'll get better range, but it might be a little bit harder of a ride. Okay, my gauge is reading 25 psi, so I can take this guy off now. And put the cap back on. Action. Pumping up the rear tire is the exact same process that we just did on the front. Now we're going to throw the battery into the bike. It has this little channel here on the back, and that corresponds to this little track on here. So we're just going to line those up. It should just slide right in. Give it a nice little downward press, and we can turn that key all the way to the right so that the deadbolt locks it to the frame. And now we'll give the bike, we're actually going to turn it on. To turn this model on with this screen, we just hold the M down for a few seconds. And there we go. Before we put the seat on, we're going to put the reflector on it so people can see us. So we'll put the seat down for a second. And all we'll need for this is our Phillips head screwdriver. Just going to undo these guys right here. Loosen just enough so that it'll fit around the seat right here. And just all the way down. I like to angle this at a nice 90-degree angle. We'll tighten that one down so it's not moving. And now we'll tighten this down to the seat post. Now we can throw this seat into the frame. Just goes right down this tube right here. I'm a bit taller, so I'm going to leave it a little high like that. And I like to center this clamp right here. Sometimes they'll come in a little off center like that, so I'm just going to try to move it over about right there. You want it in line with this channel right here. Clamp it down. Might need to twist these a little bit. And now our seat is locked in here. Next step is to just throw this front reflector on. It should go right here on the handlebars. You can go either side. Put it over there. And put the screw in from the bottom. Get it finger tight first, then use the Phillips head screwdriver. Right there, nice and tight. For this last step, we're just going to make sure that everything on the bike's tight. We didn't skip a step. So get the handlebars, give them another little downward pressure, make sure they don't drop. Looks good. I want to check the front wheel one more time. Make sure that's tight. Good there. Good there. I'll again spin the front wheel, make sure that the brakes aren't rubbing. Good there. Good on the back too. Make sure that the bike turns on. We'll even test the headlight. Just pressing this red button right here. Yep. This bike is ready for a test right now. As you can see, the process for assembling it was pretty straightforward, but if anything was unclear, please give us a call. We're happy to answer any questions and walk you through what you need. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, we'd highly recommend taking it to a qualified bike mechanic. And again, please reach out to us if you have any questions.